Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. The boys from Castle Weasel have a little bit of a lion problem. They have been exploring the 7 miles around their home hex, and as they came up through the Badlands and through Roughlands, they encountered a band of lions, 1 male and 4 females. And these are no joke in AD&D. I probably should have said it was the mountain lions. They have just 3 hit dice. Regular lions have 5. Why are regular lions this far north? Because of magic, because it's cool, because it's tougher. The good news is I've got 50 guys to smoke out these lions and chase them off so that the farmers can move in. And maybe we think that there's a lot of plains and grasslands up here, just, about a half a mile to a mile from the castle, which would be a great place for them to graze their not their oxen, their cows, their sheep, whatever. I think the sheep could probably graze here in the Roughlands, not the Badlands. I don't even know what those are yet. I need to figure that out. But today we're having a little bit of a fight scene. So I'm going to use a 2-to-1 ratio for my boys, meaning every figure gets 2 attacks unless it's wounded. Once it's wounded, it only gets 1 attack. And then once it takes its second wound, we will remove that figure. But there's a whole lot of things we have to establish first. I've got 5 light guys, and I'll show you what those figures look like. In fact, let's look at that right now. The good news is I actually do have a lion miniature. Here he is right there. Good old, who is it, Pumbaa right there. Terrifying. This is a 15 millimeter figure. I believe I got him from Splintered Light probably. And the light's kind of splintered there, isn't it? Unfortunately, I only have 1 female, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of proxying. Since we're in the Wolflands, I've got some wolf figures that are going to represent female lions. And forgive me for that. I don't have infinite number and every is this a wolf or a dog? No, that's a wolf. I mean, a wolf is a dog, isn't it? I don't have an infinite number. I can't deal with every eventuality. I can probably use scraps of paper, or in the past, we have run fights just purely theater of the mind, a little bit of arrows, a little bit of a football play, little diagram with arrows, X's and O's. But today, I want to get some terrain on the board. I want to do some 3D miniature wargaming, and as a solo wargame, as a solo version of AD&D, do whatever you're content with, right? If you're in the mood for strict theater of the mind, that's what you can do. But I want to play a miniature wargame, so that's what I'm going to do. And here are the boys that were out innocently exploring when they were ambushed by these vile and perfidious lions. I'm going to be using 1 figure to represent 2 dudes. So this is 10 medium horsemen. I've got 1 unit of 10 heavy foot, another unit of 10 heavy foot. These guys here, I think they're actually called yeomen. When you play Lion Rampant, these guys are fairly light. As you can see, they're not wearing quite as heavy an armor. The heavy footmen do have wooden spears, probably not as bent as my miniatures are at this point. I abuse them pretty heavily, but my heavy foot do have spears, swords, and shields. The light foot I think they actually have they actually have bows, don't they? Yeah, they got short bows, leather, small shield. They have a short sword and a short bow. They don't have a shield, rather. So they have leather armor. So you can see they're a little lightly. These figures are lighter in size. And then we have our bowmen. And the archers have long bows, not composite, not compound, just leather, short sword, long bow. That's all we got. So I got 10 of those guys. And they are going to be led by, I think they have to be led by a sergeant, each of these units. So let's just get stuck in. This is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So we're going to start by rolling for encounter distance, and then we'll roll to see who surprises whom. For encounter distance, we roll 6d4, and we subtract 1, we're going to call that a 4, from every result of 3 and 4. In other words, these 4s count as 3s, and these 3s count as 2s. Oh, wow, I rolled really good here. So that's going to work out to our advantage, I think, because these are 120 and then 160 feet. That's going to be our separation. 160 feet. I'm going to roll for surprise. The black die is for the lions. Nobody's surprised. So let me go ahead and set up my figures first, and then we'll roll for initiative. And here's what the terrain looks like. My tape measure is set to 16 inches. I've got the lions set up here on Pride Rock. Now, the way this works, all of the rocks are impassable to the humans. The lions don't care. It doesn't bother them at all. They're going to be able to move through the rocks. The brush that you see doesn't just block line of sight, it also blocks all movement for everybody. Even the lions aren't going to be able to get through there. So what I've done to set this up is put my light infantry, they were coming up here, they caught first sight of the lions as they hit this bundle of sticks right there. The heavy foot are in the midguard, and then we've got the archers in the rear, and our horsemen way up there on what would be the right flank for the Bromans. That gives us some tactical considerations, some things to think about. But the first thing we have to think about is initiative, and that is a simple D6 roll for both sides. The lions are going to get the initial go round. You may ask yourself, why have we not checked for reaction? These are wild animals. They're not smart. We have invaded their territory. It occurs to me they've probably been roaring this whole time, and we could hear them a half a mile to a mile in the distance. We didn't know exactly where they were at. The reason we encountered them is that we have finally set our guys to hunt them down in their den and put them out of action for good. They can move up to 12 inches, but they're not stupid. So Mama Lion 1 and 2 are going to come over here. They want to get to within 12 inches. But they want to stay out of sight of those archers. They know what happens if they get too close. I'm not moving them very far. I'm going to move them right down here behind this bush. And I'm going to force the humans to come to me. And I can charge around once they move up. Now, for the Bromans, they are also not stupid. So we're going to try to get some bow shots off if we can. But we can't. Unfortunately, we just don't have a way to get line of sight. So we put our archers here into the tall grass. Well, maybe we should kind of put them right here on the board. That gives them a little bit of cover from which they can fire when the lions finally do show themselves. They have a movement of 9 inches, not a problem. Of course, we're outside, so we all know that's feet versus yards. And then I've moved the heavy infantry up. They're setting their spears, and that leaves a little bit of an alley for the light guys. We pulled the light infantry back. They're just not made for this kind of stand-up fight. And our horsemen are going to stand over there waiting until the lions get stuck in, and then they can kind of charge around. They should have enough movement to get over to here if those lions show up first. So our lions now, on there, we can roll for initiative for the second turn. And this time, the lions get the initiative as well. So they're going to be able to charge into combat. And as you can see, they are within 12 inches. They're going to charge. The charge, in this case, will give them a bonus of 33%. Unless you are a quadruped, which means that you have a 50% bonus. And I'm not going to pre-measure this, but I'm going to send the 2 ladies over here to deal with the light infantry. They move 12 inches, and then with a 50% bonus, they are going to be able to make contact with the light infantry. Now, that's a real problem for the light infantry because they're not going to get the first attack. Our boss man is going to move into contact with the heavy infantry. Now, I'm going to do all the movement first, but we don't check initiative. Because the heavy infantry have the spears, they are going to get the first attack. And then likewise, these 2 ladies are going to get stuck in with these heavy infantry over here. I do have these set up as miniatures. However, I'm going to treat these as blocks of troops. In other words, we're going to roll 10 attacks for these heavies, 10 attacks for these heavies, because this 5 hit die guy is going up against them. 4 hit points. I didn't just use the straight hit points this time around. I said, look, 3.5, if you roll a D8, 4.5 is the average. I'm going to round up for the male. I'm going to round down for the females. That means the male has 4.5. Round that up to 5 plus 2. That's 7. He's going to have 35 hit points. The females are going to have, that's the 4.5 round down to 4, but their hit die is 5 plus 2. So 4 plus 2 is 6, and that means 6 times 5. The females are going to have 30 and 35 hit points. Mr. Ghostly Darkness here has an armor class of 5. He has to take those 10 hits from 0 level guys. They're hitting on 16s. So we get to count those up, and we get a total of 1, 2, 3 hits altogether. And because the lion is large, we're going to be rolling D8s for damage. We're going to get a total of 16 points, knocking him down to 17 remaining hit points. The big guy then makes 2 attacks, and he's going to be hitting on 11s. These guys have an armor class of 4. So he scores a single hit, and he's going to do damage of, just double checking, 2 to 12. So he's going to wind up knocking a guy out. So at 9 points. Now what I'm going to do here, just to show you how this works, one of these guys is dead. So there's only going to be 9 attacks on the next round. So I'm going to put a little red chip under him. So that means this figure represents a single guy. All right, we kind of expected that. That's why he went one-on-one against a unit of 10. But we got to remember 1 fallen soldier, because we will have to deal with morale effects. Now we have a real problem over here where our poor light infantry are going to have to eat 4 attacks from the females. And again, we're going to be hitting on 11s. And they got butt kissed. They didn't get a single hit. Over here, we have another combat. Let's take a little sneak peek. We'll zoom in on that tree. Ooh, fat fingered that one, didn't I? I don't want to zoom in too tight because I do want to leave room for the dice. For those of you who are concerned, yes, these are spin down dice, typically used to track things like damage during magic. It does affect the odds very slightly. It's also, I typically use these for casualties or for hit point damage when I use my miniature games, but whatever. So I guess the one thing, what I'm going to do here is I got 5 red dice, so that's going to be for this little lady over here, and then I got 5 blue dice for the lady who is in the forefront, and that way we can separate and go, okay, well look, I got 2 hits and I got 3 hits. We're looking for 16s or better still. That means on the charge, the lady over here is going to take, let's see, I said blue is for the forefront. Okay, so the lady in the back, girl lion, is going to take 15 points, and this other lion is going to take the one in the foreground. I'm going to roll twice. That was a really good roll, too. Is going to be 11 points of damage. So that was 15. And then the last round of attacks, these 2 female lions have already attacked, and I'm going to do the same thing. The red dice will be for the lady towards the top of the screen, the blue dice for the one at the bottom. They've done their attacks, all misses, so now our heroes get to do their attacks, and red is going to score 2 hits, 3 hits, and blue is going to score 1, 2 hits. So again, we are doing really well in this particular encounter. And remember, this is the lions portion of the attack. We're still in the charge phase. So for the 3 for her, we're going to roll 13 points of damage. And then for this lion, we're going to roll just 9. So 13 and 9. Our medium horse are now going to be able to move into contact, and the medium horsemen, because they're attacking these ladies in the flanks, and I think the big guy is probably too far away. So I'm going to put 2 on each of these lions, with 1 guy coming over here and setting up to charge at the big guy. You guys are just going to have to hold. Sorry about that. And because all of the other guys have attacked, I do get the charge bonus. It occurs to me, I forgot to give the lions the +2. I'm trying to recall if that would have made a difference or not in any of my hits. It might have. That's the beauty of charge. Well, I checked the tape. Didn't make much of a difference. I am going to roll. Well, I checked the tape and it didn't make much of a difference. None of these lions missed by rolling a 9 or a 10, which would have turned a miss into a hit with the +2 charge bonus. Now, our medium horsemen get the charge bonus. They're at +2. They're going to be hitting on 14s this time, and I'm going to roll for these 4 first. Again, the blue die will be for the ones nearest. I only get a single hit, but because I charged, I will do double damage against the lady up at the top, and that 5 becomes a 10, and she's going to be knocked down to just 5 hit points. Then I have 2 attacks on each of these ladies, and again, I'm going to be hitting on 14s because of the charge with the potential for double damage. I think, do the spears, do set spears do double damage? Let me check that real quick. I'm going to score a total of 1, 2, 3 hits altogether, and so we'll roll a single die for, I think blue is at the top. So 1 die for that, we get a 4, and then we get a total of 6 for the lady down at the bottom. Setting spears does double damage. That would have killed this lion outright. We managed to do 15 points of damage, doubled to 30. It also would have killed this guy outright. 18 doubled is 36. Hey, you just came back from the dead. How about that? That lion would never have gotten his attack off. So these damages are not doubled. Are they enough to remove those two lionesses from the table? As a matter of fact, they would. She took 13 points of damage, although we double that to 26, and then 4 points of damage is 30. Likewise, this little lady was stuck on 6 hit points worth of damage, and if we pan down to see how... So we did 13 points of... What did we do? We did 9 points of damage to her. Oh, she is still alive. Okay, good. She's reduced down to 6 hit points. There you go. So we have eliminated 2 of the lions, and now there are just 2 of the lions remaining, 2 of the lionesses, and they are going to... Now, if they break off, they're going to be subject to attacks. So what happens next? Well, we have to check our morale. These poor lions are at a total of plus 65. It's a 50-50 chance. Plus 65 gives us 115. We still have to roll to see how bad, and they roll a 100. Which means in the swirl and storm and drying of combat, they're going to simply disengage and move back 12 inches. The first one will fall back to there. The second will fall back just a little bit further. Now, some people get really confused about this because if you take a look at this little chapter here, breaking off from melee, you have to read it very carefully. It says, at such time as any creature decides it can break off the engagement and flee the melee. Okay, but we're not fleeing here. If you flee melee, your opponent gets a free attack routine as if it was a rear attack, but we're not engaged in flight here. See, we're not fleeing in panic, see? See, we're just falling back. And so this means that you forego your attack and the enemy does not get that free attack. So they fall back to here and the enemy can pursue. I suppose, oh, you know what? I should have rolled for initiative though, shouldn't I? Let me go ahead and do that right now because this might dramatically affect things. It does. They will fall back fighting on their activation, but I don't think these ladies are going to get it because they're going to have to eat so many attacks. We're going to be eating a total of 8 attacks over here, 4 for the guys on horse and 4 for the guys on foot. And again, we're going to be hitting on 16s. She is down to just 8 hit points. So we get a 19 and a 16, and we're going to roll 2d8, and that's going to get 4. So she'll be reduced to just 4 hit points. And this little lady over here is now going to have to do the same thing. Now, only 6 people can attack. Actually, now that I think about it, I probably should have only rolled 6 dice. So, whoopsie. I guess we can re-roll that, but we're likely to wind up with more hit points. So let's just let that one stand. I forgot about the limitation to like how crowded it is. So however we set things up, it's going to be 6 attacks. We get a 19 and an 18 and a 17. So 3d8 against this little lady, and she's going to take 14 points of damage. So we've eliminated another one of these lions, and there's just going to be the one left over here. And on her turn, she's going to disengage and move back the 12. Although, so that's her only move, but we have to check her morale again, and it's going to be even worse. Basically, we roll a 68. She's going to fail by so much, she's just going to flee in panic. I guess one of the things we could do is bring him over here, but look, it doesn't really matter at this point, okay? She only has 4 hit points left. She's going to, whether she's dead or whether we hunt her down or not, we have driven her from the field and we have secured the safety of this little corner of the Wolflands for our people. To remind those of you who are showing up to an AD&D episode, we're right over here in the scrublands. You know, we probably could have heard those lions roaring all the time because we're just somewhere in this area right here where those lions are coming down into the plains, but they're not going to be coming down anymore. So we now have safe passage for our little farmers to bring their animals up in once we explore. Hopefully there'll be some grasslands up there, or maybe even down here. The lions would come down several hundred yards and maybe, I don't know, fishing, whatever they could find, prowling through the woods down here. They're through the woods up there. Well, they're not doing any more prowling now because we put them out of their misery. And we have made the wilds a little safer for man, woman, and child alike. These guys are the real heroes, and we did it without suffering a single casualty because our heavy infantry, first of all, we brought enough people that all those hit dice didn't really make that big of a difference. Also, we set our spears for charge. What a game breaker that is. You run into that many guys with spears, it's not going to go well. Come to think of it, maybe it was a little cheap rolling 10 attacks, but that's kind of how the cookie crumbled, I guess. I probably, maybe, if you guys want to call me out, but I'm not going to worry about it because our next encounter is not going to go this easy, right? It gets hard, it gets easy, it gets hard, it gets easy. If this one was a little easier, cut me some slack, okay? Going to get a little bit of a cash infusion, I think, with the next caravan coming back. And things are looking up for us, at least until we stumble upon another gang of ogres. Those guys are terrifying. Hey, I think this video is going to be a short one. There was only 2 rounds of combat. That's the beauty of AD&D. You can get through multiple combats in a single session. That's why you can get away with 1-to-1 time. Don't be afraid to give it a chance. Don't be afraid to run combats like this Theater of the Mind. Although, honestly, doesn't this look pretty? Doesn't it look so gorgeous with the dice? I don't even mind the table clutter with the dice. They just look so good. Why would you want to engage in any other hobby when you have this wonderful hobby before you? I don't know. I wouldn't. Till next time, I'm praying for you.